Okay, in this video, we're going to complete the process to create a PWA and publish it, go through the PWA creator, and take advantage of a custom domain that we mapped in a separate video using Cloudflare. So in order to make ready to do a custom mapping, what we'd have to do is go into our app. First, you create it, and then you don't have to build it. None of the work has to be done to put the features in or configure them. But you do have to create the app so that an ID gets created. Once it's created, you can come down to the application section, and then it'll have a URL. This is basically the web URL. And this number from 6 to the 1 at the end, right here, this is the app ID that we're going to use to map the PWA, and you're going to fill out in a form in order to get this mapping completed so that we do it on the back end for you so that everything works as expected for your client. So the name of the app in this case is Apptekz Gym. And so we use the name in our DNS mapping of Apptekz Gym without a space. And we mapped it as a subdomain to pwadirectory.com. So it can be reached by going apptekzgym.pwadirectory.com. But in your case, if you had a gym that was called My Gym and you have a normal website there, if you have access to that customer's domain of mygym.com, then you could make your app app.mygym.com. So the instructions are really for Cloudflare mapping. Whatever subdirectory you want to create, either on the pwadirectory.com domain or your own reseller custom domain or the domain of your client. It doesn't really matter. The process is the same. It just matters what URL the users of the app are going to go to load the app. And again, they're only going to see it during that one time when they do it. So all we need is whatever subdomain you want to use, and we're going to need to have this app ID, which is later going to associate, which we've already done all the work. So I'm just showing you where to get that information. So from the left pane, we're going to go into PWA Creator. And if the PWA has not yet been created, then you're going to see a blank screen and you'll need to activate the PWA. If the PWA was already activated previously, then you're going to see some of the elements that'll be on this screen. Now, we've recently updated our PWA Creator at the time of this video. So there are some new features that have been added to PWAs. One of them is enabling iOS to receive push notifications now in the app notification section on the device. That wasn't possible until iOS updated some things in their operating system. And so in order to take advantage of a new PWA functionality, and we'll of course notify you if this is the case, you may have to regenerate your PWA. And it's a simple process, whether you're doing it for the first time or you're going to regenerate it. So at this point, what I want to show you how to do is to generate the PWA from scratch. And the process will basically be the same. If you have to regenerate, the only real difference is going to be most of the information that you need to put in there is already there. So you only need to change whatever needs to be changed, or in the case of a code update that adds new features, there may be some new functionality that you have to identify and enter some data for. Otherwise, you just run through the regeneration process, you complete it, you upload the new PWA into the system, and it will continue to work as before. And as soon as the clients log on to the PWA and refresh the PWA, it's going to have all the new features. So there's nothing new that you have to do on the client side. It's not like a native app where they're going to have to go download a new app either from the Play Store or the iOS store. So here we go. We're going to go in here and fill in the PWA details. And by default, it's got a white background. We can change the background. I sometimes like to use black. for some apps, depending on the color scheme, but that's entirely up to you. You could map it or match it to whatever color you want. In our case, we're going to do it black. We're going to enable push notifications. In most cases, you would want to. Now, you've got some additional features that help you with your search engine optimization. And we highly recommend that you decide what your meta title and description and keywords should be. Then we're going to click Next. And I like to check all the boxes, and it improves the look, I think, of the pop-up where the client is asked to install the mobile app on their phone. But you can do it however you like. You can also set the colors. We've also got the Facebook pop-up for when they share it on Facebook. And again, I do the same, but again, you can do it however you want. And then you save this, and that's it. At this point, we've saved all that information. And now we can go back to the dashboard. If we click Next, it's just going to run through the process again. So you can verify your work. Go back to the dashboard. Now we have all of these other pieces of information that we can fill out. So the first was the creation of the PWA. First activate, then create. If we manage the PWA details, this takes us back to where we just were. That's the PWA creation section. So this has changed a little bit since the last version. Since we updated, we've given you some more options in here, and we've broken them into sections. The PWA push subscribe details. If we want to have PWA push using the push list module inside the app, we also need to do things here. So we can check these boxes. We can decide how many times it prompts them, prompts a user if they don't accept push notifications when they first install the app. We can change the text of the messages. We can change the color and modify the way this message looks. I'm going to leave the default. And this is what the button, again, you can change this. If we want to enable the welcome push notification, it's going to thank them for subscribing to notifications. You can change the message. And just like the other section, we can go back through here again or go back to the dashboard. Once we've completed that section, we've got the cookie consent. This is brand new. The cookie consent is probably a good idea. And if for GDPR folks, it's an absolute necessity. If you want to force a consent overlay, you can. If you want to play around with that and see how it looks in each way, you can choose whatever you want. You can always come back here and change these settings. This is what your message will look like. Again, you can modify the buttons. And now we're going to save that. And we're going to go back to the dashboard. And now we're going to generate the PWA. Okay, here we just add the details into the relevant boxes, and then you're done. Okay, so once that completes, then you get this screen. And now you can see you've got all these different options. You've got the manage your PWA details, which is where we started when we created the PWA. It's going back to those. You've got your push subscribe, which we did, the cookie consent, which we did. and then we generated the PWA. So anytime there's a change to the code, or if you had not already done a custom mapping prior to doing your PWA generation, and you can see here we've got the original URL, and we've got our QR code here. So now we can just do a custom generate after our custom mapping is done, and we just go here and we run through the process again. In the DNS record management section, which is over here to your in your panel here. So you're going to select DNS, and then you're going to go to your records, and just to kind of block out all the rest of the records I did a search, but your list of DNS would be there, and all you do is add a record, and you'll get this box, and then you fill in the record. You'll pick the CNAME from the dropdown. You'll put the name of the app subdomain that you want to use for your PWA, and then you'll map it to the Apptekz Mobile App Builder at cms.apptekz.com. And because it's a PWA, we need to have this proxy set. On everything else that maps to the App Builder, you would not set proxy, like for your white label. But in the case of the PWA, you're going to. And so that's the default, and that's all you're going to do. So you just put your subdomain and then the mapping, and that's it. And then you save it. Once saved, this will become available immediately if the domain and everything is already on Cloudflare, which ours is. Create it again, this time after completing the custom mapping for DNS and for the PWA mapping. And you can now see we've got both the short name, the apptekzgym.pwadirectory.com, and the long one that uses the ID in the PWA directory. And one of the changes we've made in this new version is that we're only working with a single QR code for the PWA rather than having one for each, the short and the long. So your others should still continue to work fine, but going forward, we're only going to be using the one for the long version of the URL. So that's how this works. And then, of course, the final option here is the PWA custom CSS. And this right now is specific to the desktop PWA. So there's no difference here. If you want to do the desktop PWA, you just click here. You choose the PWA CSS that you want to use. You put your custom URL to this QR code, and then everything else, will be done according to the CSS. And so that's all you have to do. And this is the new PWA 3.0 procedure. Not a big change from the previous versions, but just a few new features added and a little bit of a redesign in the workflow. So that's all there is to it. And it's that easy still to create a PWA. The whole process, we took a long time to explain it as we went through the video, but the entire process should probably still take no more than 5 minutes. So hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions or problems, don't hesitate to reach out. The process to do your custom mappings is still going to be the same. We ask that you fill out the registration form after you've made your update in Cloudflare. If you want to use our PWA directory and a subdomain off that, you can let us know as you fill out the form. If you have your own domain or your customer's domain that you want to use, just make sure to fill out all the relevant parts of the form, and we will make that update for you within 24 hours. And after that, you can regenerate your PWA. Okay, so that's all we have in this video. We'll see you in the next one.